Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Progeny Podcast. Today, my guest is Mustafa and Rawa Hamadi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been trying to have this podcast for some time, I think. So, alhamdulillah, we've got you into the studios, taking time out of your busy schedules. And I hope that the viewers and the listeners will benefit from what you say and from the experiences that inshallah you'll share with us. I'll start off by asking you guys how long you've been married for first. And they're a couple as well, so
How long have you been married? The test.
You should have told us that before.
sorry, Anya, that's why I have to put you.
17 years, yeah.
18 years. 18 years.
Do you know
Coming
the
up.
date?
June.
Coming up, yeah. 18 years. June the 8th.
I put you on the spot there.
Yes,
Well
I
done.
know this.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm good with these dates.
Oh, very good.
Etched.
I'm going to start off, getting straight to what hopefully will benefit our viewers and discuss a topic that definitely I feel has stigma around in our communities. A topic that's recently I saw one or two video clips or I think a documentary on certain Muslim channels about, but something that's not discussed in the Iraqi community, something that I would say is hidden. Even some parents who go through this will try and not mention it. The people that have this issue also in certain communities will get outcasted. They feel they're not getting enough support. And we're definitely behind, especially where we live in a country where I feel people with autism have, inshallah, hopefully in this country, enough care and support from the correct authorities. And to be honest, as I mentioned to you before, I've hoped to discuss this with many people in our community, just haven't had the opportunity. So I want to thank you for taking time out to discuss this topic. I'm going to start by asking the simple first question, and that is, what is autism? And I'm asking you not just because as an expert in the field, but because someone that has experienced their child with autism. And I think sometimes when you look at the medical definition, it might help, but it won't, I think, give the person listening to a better understanding of the definition than someone going through that.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to?
Yeah, completely agree with you. When you look at kind of medical definitions of autism, they describe it as some sort of neurological mental disability.
What does that mean?
And
What does that mean? Yeah.
yeah,
Understand.
and when you think of those words, you just think mental, okay, crazy, neurological, something in the brain. Like, it is something in the brain, yes, but it's not associated with something negative or something that's crazy. It's just a different thought process and a different way the brain thinks.
Different is the key.
So actually the National Autistic Society is a great website for people to kind of learn things from, and they describe autism as a lifelong developmental disability which affects how people communicate. So that's a really nice kind of way of putting it, and also how they interact with the rest of the world. So with autistic, and I like how you said people with autism, because there's like different ways of phrasing autistic people. They don't like labels as such, so people with autism is a better way of phrasing it. There's different like attributes associated with it. So the most common one is communication. They're not able to communicate well. They lack social kind of etiquette skills, and that's something our son suffers a lot from. The other side to it is kind of a routine or OCD kind of side to it, where things, that they have to do certain things in a certain way all the time. That's just how their brain works. And that's the way I view autism. Is just, if you think about someone that's got constant anxiety and they don't know why, and you have to just make sure you try and relieve that anxiety from them. So you try and help them, equip them with things and skills that will help them just calm down and alleviate their anxiety. So a lot of the time with these autistic children or people with autism, it's about knowing what their worries are and giving them skills to say, it's okay, this is how you go about things. And just picture it as someone with extreme anxiety and give them, educate them, give them, answers to what they're worried about, to help them carry on with life. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, I think the only thing about communication, you said they don't communicate well. They do communicate well, but it's differently. And I think that's
Different
sometimes
way of communicating.
we might perceive that as they're not communicating well, but they communicate in their way. And if we understand how they're communicating, then actually they're communicating very, very well. I can think of an example with my son specifically, where he would go through a thought process and then just skip to the end. It's sort of like something would be happening, and then he'd go through it, and then he'll be like, "Why is it green?" And I'm like, "What's the context, right?" And I'd have to tell him, "I don't know what you're thinking. You have to break it down for me." And he'd get frustrated, but eventually he would communicate. So I think that's the point, is they internalize a lot of their thought, and then.
But with also a lot of them, we're very lucky. Our son is speaking and highly functioning.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
a lot of autistic children, they're non-speaking, they're non-verbal, and that can carry on into their adult lives. So, you have to remember, like when we talk, we're lucky when we talk about autism. We talk about it from our son's perspective, where he is able to speak, he is able to talk to us. But there's the ones obviously that are non-verbal, non-speaking, and I can only imagine kind of what they and their parents have to go through on a daily basis. It's tough.
Yeah.
Thanks for that breakdown of it, because I think now it makes more sense rather than the medical definition, which, like you said, will not make sense to a lot of people. And I'm just speechless because you mentioned something there, which is you said how lucky we are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
And subhanallah, this is again a test for everyone, and something for them to ponder about, and sit there and contemplate and say, parents who are facing a challenge, and I call it a challenge, not a problem, that their son is someone that has autism, they still find themselves lucky that their son can communicate with them, rather than, because I think we take a lot of things for granted. So subhanallah,
I think it's a gift.
Yeah, subhanallah.
I genuinely think
it's amazing, wallah,
Allah
amazing.
chose us.
Yes,
because
that's
He knew
beautiful.
we'd be capable to deal with an autistic.
That's a
person.
test. That's a lesson for everyone. I think the fact that you go through this and then you say Allah chose me.
Yeah.
How do you reach? Before we go to the details of when you found out your son has autism and how he was diagnosed, how do you think? Because I think a lot of people will look at this and will literally pause and say, "Wow, we've got so much blessings around us, and we take them for granted." How do you reach a level where you're faced with a challenge like this, and then you say, "Allah chose me for this"?
To be
Is
honest,
it your mindset? How do you prepare your mind?
I couldn't give you one direct answer to say, "Oh, this happened, and therefore."
We've got all day. Bismillah. Go.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's an automatic thing, right? I've seen things, and we both have, with people who've gone through some really hard things. Like I have friends who lost a child, right? Very, very small child. And that's devastating. My child is healthy and fit and fine, but they have a neurological disorder, something that makes them different, but they're okay otherwise. So alhamdulillah, right? It can always be worse.
Like, we've been through, as a couple, we've been through so many hardships. So for us, this is nothing. This is a blessing. And to be honest, I love the fact that my son's autistic, because it taught me about a whole new world I never knew existed. When my son will come on to diagnosis, but when he was first diagnosed, the only autism person I knew was someone at college with a hunchback, very socially awkward, would not look you in the eye, and but is a genius in maths. That was my view of what an autistic person is. So when my son first got diagnosed, I was like, "What? Are you sure? Can we get a second opinion on this?" Because I wasn't aware that it was a spectrum.
Yeah.
And then the more kind of we learnt about it and stuff, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Look how the brain works. Look how everyone's brain works differently.
Yeah.
So I'm just so lucky that my son being diagnosed made me it's my passion now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I love going into anything special needs. I love helping people with special needs. And I'm just, that's why I see it as I'm grateful that I was chosen to be his mum. And plus, kids are amana. They're not, they're God's amana. That's how you view it.
Exactly.
So the fact that, like I say, Allah chose us to have this amana with a special need. And I love the term special need because they are special. They're different.
Yeah, you're
you
right.
know, so for us, we just see it as constantly a blessing. We don't see it as like a
Yeah.
hardship or a
100%.
difficulty or something like that.
It has challenges, but
challenge.
they're great,
But
right?
that's-
Like often sit down, especially when the kids are not with us, and we talk about them, like as most parents do, and we remember a lot of his
Isms.
isms. Yeah, exactly. Things that he said and things that he spoke about. So firstly, before I go into this story, Rawa just mentioned as well that we didn't know much about autistic people, and
I think still till today in our
still
community,
till today, right?
90% I
So
would say don't know.
the first thought was this boy who is hunchback, awkward. One of the things that we would love is for people to understand that it's not this big scary thing, right? It's not a monster. There are lots of people that have autism who live perfectly healthy, normal lives, right? Whatever you want to call normal, who function
Yeah,
through life.
what is normal? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Who have relationships, who have friendships, who do well socially, academically, within their community. Like, it's fine, right? So that's one of the things we want to really push, is that don't think it's a big scary thing. And there is lots of support out there. But back to the story I was about to mention, is he's very literal, right? So there was one time where you said to him, "Oh, you're breaking my heart," right? He was doing something. He's like, "Oh, you're breaking my heart," and he was instantly like, "Oh, are you okay?" It's like, no, we're fine. Like, don't worry.
He literally thought my heart broke.
Wow.
And autistic kids, a lot of them, when you speak to other autistic parents, you'll find that they're very literal. So that's why your word is Bible to them. Whatever you say to them, you have to make sure that what you're saying to them is right, because they'll soak that information and they'll think that that's it. So, for example, I had issues with my son's school once because they had Macmillan coffee morning. It was like a bake sale. And the teacher has said to them, please, if you can make some, if you want, make some cakes, bring some cakes in the next day.
He
So
had bring some
then
cakes in the next
He
day.
had bring cakes in. So I'm waking up on a normal morning, taking my son to school, and he starts tantruming. I'm like, what's wrong? He said, we didn't make cake. We have to take cakes. I said, no, you don't have to. It's optional. No, the teacher said, and he is throwing a big tantrum, and it's 7:30 in the morning.
You have to.
I baked cupcakes, can I just say?
You actually got up and made cupcakes.
In half an hour.
He
I
wouldn't
made
allow her to
cake.
buy them.
Because I said to him, let's buy. He said, no, the teacher said make.
Yes.
Right?
Literal.
So
Absolutely.
literal.
To the word.
But we love it. It's cute. We sit and laugh about it because other times he's like, what was the other thing? Oh, one time I took him swimming and it was a hot day and I was like, oh, Ali, you're so lucky you're going to jump in the pool today. He goes, no, Mama, we're not allowed to jump. We have to turn around and put our feet in. Another parent I was speaking to at work yesterday, she said to me, her son, they were at an event and the speaker said, take your seats. She goes, her son literally picked up the chair and walked off with it. And he's like, why are you still sitting there? Like, we laugh about it because we find it funny and beautiful.
Yeah.
That's how their brain works. But
I mean, so it's important you also mentioned something that it's an amana.
yeah,
That everything we have is an amana that we have to look after. And subhanallah, that you say that you were chosen. When did you first get your son diagnosed, or was it how did this happen? I mean,
Okay.
did you see him and say, okay, let's diagnose him? Because I'm guessing he was really young.
he was very young. So I'll start saying this story. So our story is a bit different. My son was born very premature. He was born at 31 weeks, so that's 2 months early. And at the time, that was obviously a different difficulty on its own. At the time, the doctor said to us that by the time he's a year old, he would have caught up with the rest of his peers. So growing up, we noticed things, but we just took it as this is him being a premature baby. He's got a developmental delay.
And his name was? You named him Ali, so people can get.
Yeah, that's interesting how we
Yeah.
named him Ali, actually.
How?
So when I was really young, I had a dream that I had a son, Ali. But my sister had a child a couple of years ago before, and she called him Ali. So we changed our minds. There's
Yeah,
too many
yeah.
Alis. And we were like in between.
You can never have enough Ali.
Exactly, right? But when he was born, early, unexpectedly, as soon as he was born.
Yeah,
Like the
he
moment
was so
I looked
small,
at
and
Rawa,
we
and
just
I just said Ali, and she said
yeah. We needed Ahl al-Bayt with us,
Okay.
with him, and it was just like
Unconsciously, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
subhanallah.
it just
um,
in the moment,
In the
right?
moment, you
It was
said
just
Ali.
it happened. So, and just
But
to
anyway,
mention, there
yeah.
were a lot of kids born in the family at the same time. So his cousin was born 2 days before him, on my side, and then you had your sister's children as well.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of babies in the family.
yeah. So I always compared
yeah.
him. I had my friends as well.
Okay,
their
because
kids.
they're similar age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always compared to try and check in terms of his development, how he was going up, how he's going. I know they say don't compare babies, but you do.
You unconsciously do
yeah.
sometimes.
So anyway, when he reached kind of his year milestone, I was like, no, he still hasn't caught up with everyone else. I'm talking to him. He's blank-faced. I go out with my friend and her, her baby, who was the same age as Ali. And that baby smiles at strangers and stuff like that. My son has a blank face, like zero expression. We would sit him like on the floor with a toy for hours, and he would be focusing on the thread that's coming off a blanket or like the wheel on the truck. Not actually playing with the item.
Or with other kids as well. He wouldn't like other
Interact.
babies when they see each other, they look, they smile.
Yeah.
He would just crawl.
He's
he
in
was
his
a big
own
boy.
world.
He would crawl
He's in
over
his
the
own
other
world.
kids, like not even
Um,
noticing them. Yeah.
So
I was
physically,
trying-
he did develop because you're saying
Physically,
physically.
yeah.
Well, okay, so
Yeah.
physically, it was just you thought, okay.
Yeah. But for me, again, I just took it as this is just development delay. It will catch up.
Mm-hmm.
So the shock that I got was we went once to the GP. He kept getting, because he was a premature baby, he kept getting chest infections. So we were constantly on repeat antibiotics at the time. We went to the GP. We mentioned that, look, we don't think he's caught up with the rest of the kids his age. GP said why. We gave her a few examples. Then my husband comes out with, do you think he's autistic?
No, it wasn't that. She was tiptoeing.
No, babe, I never had autism in my mind.
Hold on. I know. The
Who
GP,
was tiptoeing?
the
The
GP.
GP was tiptoeing around autism.
There could be a condition, but it's not clear. And I looked at her. I'm a bit of a documentary geek. I watch any documentary. So
You're like me. I love documentaries.
Yeah. So I had exposure to autism a little bit. So I looked at her and I just said, autism. And she said, possibly. And Ali's mom at the time was just like, whoa, what?
Well, for two reasons. One, he hasn't discussed that with me.
Yeah.
And two, I told you my perception of autistic people was
yeah.
just extreme case.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, so anyway, this is why I'm really happy we're doing this, because I want to get the message out there to parents. If you have the slightest suspicion that your child could be autistic, you need to go to the GP. You need to get referral, because
This is
early
important.
diagnosis is key.
Yeah.
So
we
it
want to talk
wasn't-
about why it's important as well. to
Yeah,
do that.
it wasn't just a simple case of, GP saw him and that's it. There was a referral process that took a year. So Ali was going to a pediatrician for a whole year. I think it was like in and out of tests.
Speech and language. His
No, but
language
to get
was
him
good.
diagnosed,
Yeah,
it was
that's
like
part of it.
okay,
Yeah,
and then
that's
like
part of it.
mobility tests, like all sorts of testing. So when I used to tell some people at the time that my son got diagnosed,
No, there's nothing wrong.
there's nothing wrong with him. No, but my son does that, but this and that, and I'm like, look, this wasn't an easy process that we went through. Okay, he went through a year of tests, and at the same time, when I did come to the doctor face to face, and she said, yes, your son is on the spectrum. First thing I said to her is, do you think I should get a second opinion?
Yeah.
And you know what she said to me? She said, I have been diagnosing people for 30 years. I have never misdiagnosed. But if you want a second opinion, go ahead. And obviously, in hindsight now, I'm such an idiot. I shouldn't have said that, because obviously...
No. I don't think you should say that. I think it's an automatic thing.
You
And
never
you
want
don't-
something
yeah.
wrong with your child. Do you
Yeah,
know
of
what
course.
I mean? So that's what it was. But
I was devastated, personally.
yeah, and this is why it's
yeah.
interesting how men deal with things, or fathers deal with things compared to mothers. So Mustafa went militant. Mustafa started reading everything.
I
You know,
went
whatever
deep.
packs they
Every
gave.
documentary, every paper,
Every
every
document,
leaflet.
They
He
gave
read
us
everything.
They gave us a booklet this thick.
And you read.
I'm not one of these people who likes to
He
read a
doesn't-
lot, and I
You
read
read
this thing in no time, page to page. Right,
Subhanallah,
I
this-
honestly understood everything there was at the time about autism. But one thing that really stuck out, and it stuck.
Whereas
with me
I
till
didn't,
now.
by the way. I started reading this and I got depressed and I left it. I said,
Yeah.
no, my son is not this.
I took the logical.
And I'm going to
approach.
take each day. I'm going to take each day as it comes. And I've
These
got him
days
as my book if I need it.
But I think that worked well, right?
Yeah, imagine both of you were reading it and both of you were
Yeah.
proper, or both of you were like Rawa, like my son's not this. So the balance I think was important.
Yeah, I had the more logical, analytical. I understand what's going on. She had more
just
of
wanna
the
take each
mother.
day as it
He's my
comes.
son and I'm
Yeah.
his mother. And then we've kind of met in the middle, right? I think I overanalyzed probably in the beginning. But one thing that the doctor said to us, which stuck with me till today, like I said, when he was diagnosed, I think I asked like, can it change or something? I can't remember.
yeah,
And she
yeah.
said, listen, him being diagnosed is not a negative thing. It's the best thing. I said, why? She goes, because otherwise this child, like unfairly, will be labeled for the rest of his life as the naughty one,
Yeah.
the one that doesn't listen, the awkward child, the one that is like rude, right? Like I said, he's literal, right? He sometimes doesn't understand social cues. So he might come across as rude. So don't worry. Him being diagnosed is the best thing. And I think...
And for us, it was the best thing because then we started reading not about what autism is, but strategies to help him and to help
him.
us. So I'll give you this biggest example, right? In London, what the hell is there to do with your kids other than take them to a shopping centre, right?
Westfield.
Yeah, Brent Cross.
Brent
Brent
Cross.
Cross then, yeah.
Right? So I remember I used to take Ali all the time to Brent Cross. I used to call him every single time because my son would tantrum. And
Yeah.
by tantrum, I mean full on the whole time. I can't control him. I can't calm him down.
He's a big boy.
And he was big and I'm tiny. So people would look at me and think, who the hell is... I've literally had kind of even people during that time come up to me and just give me comments, rude comments and stuff because I can't control my son. That's how bad he was. So what did I do? I started not going out because I was like, I can't deal with this kid. I don't know what's going on with him. When we got the diagnosis, we were like,
Explains so
wow. Now I know why, because they explained to us, they said, of course you can't take him to a shopping center. The people, the lights, the sound, it's sensory overload. It's too much for him. That's why he's playing out. So
You and I maybe can process that,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Whereas for someone with autism, that is way too much, right? And I think we've helped him because we had that early diagnosis. Honestly, I think
Why
that
early?
is,
How old was he when
so
you
he was 2.5.
2.5?
yeah, like that to me was the biggest gift that we've got because it allowed us to be able to early enough support him and help him. And I genuinely think that Ali would not be where he is today
Without
if it wasn't for his early diagnosis and the actions, to be honest, that his mum took. She gave him
early intervention. So early diagnosis leads to early intervention.
So how did this change your life? Like,
So I'll give you an example, yeah? So obviously I expect, like, he's starting reception. I need to buy him shoes for school. I need him to come with me physically to the shopping center so I can buy it for him. So we learnt techniques, right?
to
So
research, YouTube, everything. Yeah.
so with autistic children, it's about knowing what to expect.
And they're visual.
Right?
They're very
Yeah.
visual.
So you can't spring things on them. They need to be able to know what's coming up. So basically, I ended up leaving my daughter with my mom. I said to Mustafa, right, let's
So
try
your
this.
daughter's older or younger?
Younger.
Yeah.
Younger.
She was a baby at the time.
Okay.
Left with my mom. I said, Mustafa, I'm sorry, I have to take him to Brent Cross to get him shoes. So what we did, we sat Ali down. We said, right, this is what's going to happen. We're going to get in the car. We are going to drive to Brent Cross. He used to have this routine habit where he'd go up and down the escalator a number of times. We said, we're going to do that. That's fine to have that habit, but we're only going to do it twice. Right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to go to a shoe shop. You're going to try on shoes. We're going to buy the shoes. And then we're going to go back and up and down the escalator
Escalators
twice.
twice.
And then we're going to go home.
He was fine with it.
Mustafa, I can't tell you this was the best day of my life because it worked.
It worked.
This
Yeah.
plan worked.
Twice escalator, shoes.
But what happened
twice
was
escalator.
he was so comfortable because he knew what to expect. So he deviated himself away from the plan. He saw pretzels. He said, oh, can I have a pretzel? I remember looking at Mustafa, I'm like, what the hell do I do now? Like, this is not the plan. I'm like, and then I said, okay, I'm going to ask him. I said, okay, do you want us to buy pretzels and eat it here? Or do you want us to eat it in the car, go home? Like, how do you want it? He said, no, eat it here. So I was like, yes, okay. This is honestly, because you don't understand the experiences we've had. Like, we've had days where Mustafa would be going up and down the escalator with him, and I'm in the shop choosing clothes, and then I'll come up and down the escalator with him so Mustafa can go pay. Like, back then there was no contactless and stuff like that. So just something simple like that opened up our eyes to, wow, this guy is about routine. He's about like I said, reducing his anxiety, him knowing what to expect, who he's going to see, and that just changed our
And
life.
anxiety is I think probably before COVID, not many people knew what anxiety is.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people know what
A lot of
anxiety is.
people, yeah.
So imagine having that feeling all the
24/7.
time
24/7.
about something simple, right? Till today, if we spring things on him, he gets very uncomfortable, and we have to really understand what's going on. He won't come and tell us. He can be going through turmoil. He won't tell us. We have to recognize it, ask him the right way, ask him the right questions, and then he'll reveal, and then we can help him. Simple things, as I remember, and I think, I don't remember if you saw the pattern, me or even my dad, he would play up when it rains.
We noticed that because they told us. So when we said there's support out there, we reached out at the time to BOAT, which is Brent Outreach Autism Team. And they came and helped me with a lot of kind of things at home that I needed help with. And they said to me, have you noticed he plays up when the weather's not right? And I said, oh my God, yes, when it rains, he's not himself. And we never understood why. But now I understand it's just the rain. She goes, so they explained to me, they said with some extreme autistic children, even waking up one day and seeing it's white and snowing outside, that throws them off.
It's like you've taken them out of their world
And put them
in a completely different
Yeah.
world that they don't recognize.
They haven't seen before.
So we check the weather constantly. Oh, and it's raining tomorrow.
You let them know.
Preparing helps.
Yeah.
But we spoke about gifts, and something came to mind as well, is his memory. So, and kind of his obsessive behavior. And like I said, it's a gift. So he would he got obsessed about tennis at some point, and he knew every single tennis player.
Wow.
And
Love
their
tennis.
birthdays.
Their date of birth,
Wow.
their birthdays, and to the point where
Their
Andy
partner's
Murray,
date of birth.
he knew, yeah,
Their
exactly,
kids' names.
yeah, his mum's date of birth,
Wow.
he was unbelievable, right? And there was one thing, he used to have a DVD player.
Please tell me you took him but it's difficult maybe to take him to
We
Wimbledon
didn't,
or
yeah,
something.
we
It
didn't.
might
He
be
used to
difficult.
play tennis, and then
Yeah.
he chose between tennis and football, and obviously football won. So he had a DVD player in the car, right? Showing my age here. And I think the charger was broken or something. So it must have been 9 months later. I had a new charger for it, and I was trying to set it up for him. He was sitting down. He had about 20 or 30 different DVDs at the time. And he's like, Bob the Builder. And I'm like, hey, Habib, Bob the Builder. He was like still 2-something. So as I was putting it in, he kept saying, Bob the Builder, Bob the Builder. I'm like, okay, Habibi, all right. Oh, he only had one Bob the Builder DVD. I plugged it in, pressed play, Bob the Builder. He remembered the last thing that he'd seen on the DVD player
Wow.
from 9 months ago. And this is like he was.
Yeah,
still
we
sick.
recognized he had photographic memory quite early on.
Yeah.
You mentioned spectrum.
Yeah.
So what are the different spectrums that are in with regards to people with autism? And are they classed like according to how difficult or extreme they are, or is it more to do with?
So spectrum, if you just picture it's like a rainbow,
Okay.
and we're all at the bottom of this rainbow, so we're all on the spectrum. So even like I've got lots of OCD. Like when it comes to cleaning, you might have your own OCD when it comes to other things.
Yes, I
So we're
do.
all-
I have OCD with checking the door if the door's closed,
Exactly.
locked or not.
So we're
before I
all-
sleep every day.
Yeah. So we're all on the spectrum.
There's like the social cues as well. So sometimes you might not understand people's body language. I think that I'm sometimes quite socially awkward.
Yeah.
and I
So
just-
the higher up the rainbow that you go, the higher up these autistic traits are shown in you. So, but I think at the top of it is kind of the non-speaking, non-communicating element of it. I think that's the main
very
one.
low functioning.
Yeah.
And it's hard because
And where's Ali on that spectrum?
it's hard. That's what I was gonna say. It's
Oh,
really hard. It's
to-
not
maybe
like
not one.
it's not like a
Yeah.
volume and then you can go up and
sense.
down. There's multiple things happening at different times, right? So like we said, there's the communication.
And he's mainly communicate, like his social skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the OCD, he's not too bad, right? His social skills, like you'll notice with people with autism won't give
Look you in the eye.
They won't look you in the eye. So he has difficulty. He's very shy. So if you think about these different dials, you might have one turned up, one turned down. How do you compare him to someone else with autism that might have a whole load of dials in a different? So it's about how he can function in life. So he's referred to as high functioning, right? He can function in all aspects of life, but he will have some anxieties about many things. And it's about how he manages those things and how we can help him manage those things.
And I'm guessing, like you said earlier, you take every day as it comes to you, and then I'm guessing some days are easy.
Yeah, so like
And
the other
some
day
days
he
are
came
more
home from
difficult.
school. So this is an example of his social lack of awareness of people's kind of social skills.
Yeah.
He came home from school and was like really
Devastated.
upset,
Yeah.
really just down. And then we said, okay. And with him, we have to like kind of get his emotions out. We have to talk to him constantly. What's wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? Tell her.
Force it out.
Turned out some friends at his school didn't allow him to play table tennis with them.
Because he's too good. That was
We found out the reason was because he's too good.
good. He's beating everyone. They said you can't play anymore.
Yeah.
So he doesn't understand that's actually not him, not your friend hating you or not your friend not wanting to be your friend, but actually was a compliment. He didn't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, so he was devastated.
And he said, like, after questioning, like, were they okay with you when you were in the class? They're like, yeah, they were fine with me.
Because I
they-
don't understand why they were fine with me when they didn't want me to play. That doesn't make sense. So he took it as something that they don't like me, that's why they want me to play, rather than seeing it as a compliment, you're too good, and that's why they were fine with you. They're still your friends.
So I've noticed the last few weeks that you've brought him to the Haraka Husseiniya program.
Yeah. How?
In Haraka, the Mullah Ali Fadl segment, there's quite a lot of clapping and it's loud, and sometimes even during the raffles or the prizes.
Yeah.
How is he finding Haraka? Is he enjoying it?
Because he knows what to expect.
Exactly.
So the first time I
The
took
first
him,
time was
he didn't know what to expect, so he actually didn't want to go until, with these things, sometimes you have to force the kids to attend. And because he had his friends there and his dad there, so I think that was his comfort.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he enjoyed it. So that was it. Then every time I say, do you want to go Haraka? Yeah, let's go Haraka. Now he knows what to expect. He knows there's going to be a Kahoot quiz. He knows there's going to be a raffle. And I think he's fine generally.
I guarantee you, if we ever went to Haraka and it was a molded and he was expecting all the same things and they didn't happen, we would have a
note.
problem. Yeah.
I'll make a note. I
Yeah,
think.
make
We'll make sure those things.
But just for
So
him,
Shahada nights aren't the best nights for him when there's no Kahoot or raffle.
If
Or
he
at
knows,
least
if he knows
that
it's not
today's a
happening-
sad day.
exactly. That's
So
fine.
I have not brought him yet
To
to
a
a
sad-
Saturday,
sad-
which is the
yeah.
next step. Yeah.
Probably the next one will probably be in Shahar Ramadan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this point that he wants, and I think this is something that, by the way, is for everyone to a certain degree.
Yes.
You don't want to go to a place not knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of person that doesn't like, to a certain degree, I don't like trying to go to a holiday to a new place.
Yeah.
If I don't know the language,
Creatures of habit, of course.
if I want to not go somewhere where I know the language, I've been there before.
Halal food.
Halal food, hamshi. So
Yeah.
treating this sadly in our communities as something that, sorry, I'm going to use this word, but
Yeah.
in our communities, هذا مخبل.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they say when they
Yeah,
hear
yeah, yeah.
autism.
Or the opposite of la ma bishi. There's nothing wrong with
Ahsant. So it's either they don't want it, mabishi,
My
or
son
هذا-
does that too.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good point.
So
Everything that he experiences, we all experience. Everyone does, right?
just how you
Or at least someone will.
But it just affects them differently.
Exactly. Like for us, it might just.
We can
Yeah,
switch
you
off
don't- yeah.
from
For him,
it
it's
afterwards,
deep
but they don't
anxiety.
switch off from it.
And he will think about it. I remember one.
He'll bring up something
Yeah.
that
I can
happened.
see
Mama, do you remember 2 years ago on a Sunday we went to this place and it made me feel like this? And I'm like, no, I don't remember. But thanks for telling me. Like it will stay with them and it affects them differently. And with Ali as well. So like if he's had a negative experience once from something, that is it. He does not want to experience that place again.
That's it.
Yeah.
Put an X on it.
Yeah.
خلاص.
There
Whereas
was,
with us, no, we'll try it things again
صح.
and it's
Yeah.
fine. Like, so it just affects them differently and
Yeah.
it stays with them. We can switch off. We can like,
it is
you know,
deep.
yeah.
It affects them deeply.
I've noticed within the Iraqi community, within our own community, more parents are now speaking about autism, especially in our generation, we'd say, the ones that studied and grew up here and were born here. And I've also noticed that there's not much stigma on social media in our community. There's a few people that have now addressed this issue. Whereas I think I want to word this right so I don't offend anyone. Maybe our centers, the older generation who are not so familiar with the causes of autism, what autism are, there's still a stigma around it.
Mhm.
And which leads me to an important question: is there enough support? And I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it
No,
from you,
no, there isn't.
from the community.
Okay.
And as I said, I know the answer, but and again, this is I think, not just the Iraqi community. I'll even go broader and say the generally the Muslim community. There isn't much support for parents with children with autism, or even the children with autism, to cater them for their programs that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think the support should be? What kind of support should there be?
Yeah.
And do you think maybe the likes of yourselves and others can get together and do maybe seminars, workshops, maybe for the centres
Sure. I think you
and community leaders?
I think they're two separate things
Mm.
between lack of support and awareness and stigma, right? So,
So,
and I think the stigma
There.
is really important, especially for parents with children who have autism,
Mm.
because they are fearful of the child's future and how they're perceived if they're diagnosed or if they divulge that their child has been diagnosed. And it's honestly, like I said, what the doctor said to me is that child, when Ali was diagnosed, we told all of our families, we even the kids, they understood. And they loved him. They understood
you
that.
didn't shy away from it or say, let's
Absolutely.
hide Ali,
They-
keep him at
they
home,
knew.
not tell anyone.
No.
And
Because you
when-
had to explain to them how to communicate with him.
Yeah,
So I explained to them something like, be careful what you say to him because your word, he will take it literal.
yeah.
You know, so you guys are role models now for him. Like everyone is a role model for him because he just takes everything everyone says literal.
We have friends as well who has, like, one of our friends has a son who's younger than Ali, and he would get really annoyed with him and stop talking to him. And then he got to an age where, okay, we can now explain it to him. The minute we explained it to him, their relationship changed, right? He would just understand.
He became very understanding towards him.
And kids are amazing, by the way, right? I know people think that kids are just horrible, and sometimes they are, but they're also really, really understanding. So that's in terms of the stigma. In terms of awareness, I think I don't put blame, right, on people, because I think if my son wasn't autistic, I'd probably know very little, right? So I think that's fine. And in terms of catering, I think it's important to cater for as many disabilities as possible. But autism is definitely on the rise. And I think it's always been out there. Probably a lot of people just haven't been diagnosed. And I think it's possible to make some programs or specific programs autistic friendly. Even outside of our communities, you'll look at cinemas. When we were growing up,
They don't need to
you'd
be
go-
specific.
they don't need to be. It's possible.
Your community events make them accessible to
Accessible, yeah.
autistic families. And how you can do that is just something simple. You know how sometimes they send out, these comms about an event. Oh, let us know if you have an allergy because there's going to be food.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you say, let us know if you have special, if you have special requests for your special needs children, for example.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be the one to come to you and say, you know what, my son needs, for example, for autistic children, they might need a quiet room, somewhere they can go because it all can become too overwhelming. My son will need a quiet room. Do you
Time
have
out.
space? Yeah. Do you have space where my son can just go and relax? I'm not going to come to you and say that. You, as an event organizer, needs to, that burden should be on you rather than on me to come, because you've acknowledged that, oh, wow, they actually can cater for autistic or special needs families. That's amazing. I'm going to come to this event.
Yeah, you need
and
to
I'm,
discuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can we? Because this is it. This is the point. So they might not know how.
Yeah, that's
These are
another
the
thing.
things.
Yeah.
But just saying, how can we help
Yeah.
you attend that event if you've got children with special
Yeah.
needs or
And you
so
mentioned
obviously,
something
like
important.
awareness talks,
Yeah.
teach your kids what it is, make your events accessible, stuff like that.
Yeah.
do you
And
think
I
you,
think just ask, like, autistic
There's,
voices.
it
speak to
depends,
the-
like we said, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the individual. Some, like for Ali, we know, even when we've got guests at our house, sometimes it can get too much. He will go upstairs to his room for half an hour. He'll, decompress
I can do that.
and then come back. Well, yeah, don't we all? For some children with autism, they might want
headphones? Yeah,
right?
I've seen some.
Just to block out.
Yeah.
It's really different.
I want that. As well,
But if but I think that's really important, actually. If centers or organizers for particular events would ask, then I think they would get the feedback to say, oh, I have a son. How can we help? What can we do to actually cater for your son? And obviously, within means, but I think the more that this happens, the more accessible things come, and it will strengthen our community from that sense.
Is there any board or within the Iraqi community that caters for this? Because you mentioned the one in Brent. But in the Iraqi community, there isn't anything like a group maybe, or even like a small WhatsApp group or an email mail out.
I mean, I've seen kind of Instagram pages that have been created. Amanati, I think, is one of them that's been created for autistic special needs families. So that's good. That's a website that people they've got a WhatsApp group, and you can join their Instagram and kind of they do lots of events to raise awareness.
Yeah.
So they do lots of events to raise awareness, which is great. I think another thing, I would urge people to just read up about it, and maybe if you know someone, ask how you can help. Right? So one thing that shocked me a lot with my friends is that it was their comments. But my son does this. Does your son get special treatment at school then? Or
does he go to a normal school?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of that.
I think people mean well when they're saying, "Oh, but my son does this." They think they're reassuring us.
They're reassuring us.
But it's okay. We're okay that our son has autism. You don't need to reassure us.
Yeah.
But
I think what upsets me the most.
Your son looks fine. He looks okay.
He looks okay. You wouldn't notice.
What upsets me the most is I want you to tell your kids who are his age, this boy, make an effort with him. Don't necessarily have to tell them he's autistic. Make an effort with him. He's a bit shy. Make an effort, involve him in your football matches. Do this, do that, And I think that's when people know and they don't do anything, I think that's what hurts.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
I personally don't have that view. With him socially, I think it depends. We're lucky in the sense...
That's a mother's...
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I think him socially, I want him to be able to have a bit more resilience, because he's going to be out there and he's not going to have us being able to tell people, can you please make sure you take care of him? So he needs to learn how to deal with those situations. But what would be important is when like Arabic school was a challenge for us.
I bet.
Because you try to explain to these teachers, listen, it's different. We're okay with it, but we're telling you how we need you to deal with it.
Yeah, we were only explaining it, not to get special treatment, just to say to him that he might need you to explain the question, because he'll sit there for a whole hour, won't say, Miss, I don't understand.
Just check. Have you understood, Ali?
So
just the extra
check
question.
that he's understood you. Mabishi. That's all we got. Mabishi. And it was like, okay.
That's
tough.
It's really hard, and I think that's especially with the older generation, as the teachers, and having more of a traditional way of thinking about it. And this is the whole stigma of he's fine. It's like, we know he's fine. He's great, but we need to make sure that we're communicating with him so that he gets everything he does out of it. He won't be sitting there worried because he hasn't understood something, and he will never complain. He'll just stay completely quiet the whole time. Which might be true for other kids, 100%. But we know that specifically with him, it's likely to happen.
And it's lifelong. So if he doesn't learn that he can put his hand up in the class now and tell each other, I don't understand, it will carry on forever. So this is another thing about autistic children, is you can kick them out of habits.
Oh, you can?
You can.
Yeah.
So we learned that quite early on. And I'll give you an example. When Ali was in nursery... There was a black letterbox on the way out, and Ali had this thing where he had to keep banging it. He'll just touch it on his way out.
As he walks out, bang.
But as he bangs it, it makes the loudest sound. It's really disturbing. So Mustafa's view was always, let him. That's his habit. That's his thing. Like he'll get anxious if he doesn't do it. Let him. It's not harmful, which I agree with usually. But I'm like, no, I don't need my son to, cause this much scene just on the way out. So no, I'm going to tell him he doesn't need to do this every time. And I did. I used to stop him physically, restrain him, until eventually he stopped.
That opened my eyes.
And by the way, that is why...
You learn something new, I guess, every day it
opened my eyes. Not only...
But with a lot of kids that go... Sorry.
Carry on.
With a lot of kids that go undiagnosed, right? They'll have these bad habits for life. parents not being aware that
And then they'll
knowing
say he's
how.
the naughty one. He's هذا شو
Yeah.
اسمه هذا وكيل
يعاند.
هذا يعاند ابنه يعاند.
And I was
Yeah.
going to say, I learned something big.
And
there.
we know, by the way, we know at least two families who have kids that we know they're autistic because we see it,
One of the parents will know, but the other parent
but they
Will deny.
refuse. Yeah.
no, I don't want to.
Denial.
And it's
They're
to the
worried.
detriment of your child.
How's he going to get married? Who's going to want him? Like, come on, it's different. Like, you can't think like
Which
that.
you did, by the way, initially.
Um,
Mustafa first said to me, "Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone. You know
Automatically.
what?
Yeah,
You
it's
know
an
what our
automatic
community is
unconscious,
like.
yeah.
Don't tell anyone."
Yeah,
And I was like, "No, I'm proud.
No,
I'm gonna tell
This is
everyone."
when he was really, really young, and
Yeah.
my fear is that he'd be treated
Outcast,
differently.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think we had to go through a process. Like even with this banging thing, things can change. You can change, and this is why it's really important. And I will stress it: it's so important to get that early diagnosis. For nothing else, but then for you as a parent to learn how to help your child, right? And I think, and I said it, all the credit goes to his mum, especially he had global development delay. When he started school, they said to us, he's 3 years, mentally, he's 3 years behind his peers. Within 2 years, he was top of his class.
Alhamdulillah.
He was, mashallah, he was amazing because his mum would sit with him every day, communicate to him in the way that he needed to communicate. And he passed all those challenges because
we knew.
he had the support. And the
Because we
same
knew,
now,
yeah.
even now with social things, we had to explain. The funny story was how we told him he was autistic. So it was hard. Like, how do you tell your child you're different? And I think we didn't really ever plan it, but we knew that we'd have to do it at some
You'd
time.
have to sit him down.
And I told him in the weirdest way. I think he was 6. At the
You were
time.
showering him.
I was showering him, and I told him you're autistic, and he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "Yeah, it means you're special. You have, you know, you think about things, you see the world in a different way, which is amazing. It's
Yeah,
special."
special power.
And we just left it at that, right? Very relaxed. And then he came back. He's like, "What's autistic?" And I'm like, "Autistic," and we'd explain it. So he understood, and even things like puberty. Right, so he's 13 now. So we had to explain things to him.
Oh, very early on, by the
Very
way,
early,
because
very early.
puberty
Before
for
it even
autistic
started.
children is the most
It
challenging
must
time.
be.
Body changing is a shock to their system.
Yeah.
So with
Well,
Ali,
already you're saying he feels
yeah,
anxious about things.
Yeah.
So this will.
How did it go?
it was amazing because we
Perfect.
said we made it a good thing. You're turning into a man. You know, you're gonna be like
Mm.
Barbara,
He
like
was prepared. It's like
Yeah.
going to the shopping center and
Yeah.
telling him it was the same thing. High school, going into high school, we were super worried because he's been in the same environment
And now
day
he's
for
gonna
the
change.
last 6-7 years, and now we're taking him to a completely new school, different people. He loved high school.
he thrives because it's routine. High school's routine.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
why.
the preparation and
Yeah.
making him understand, making him aware. If we didn't know, we wouldn't have prepared him. He would have been in turmoil,
Yeah.
right? Going into that new environment.
I think our life would be completely different now if my son was not diagnosed, honestly. I think as parents, we would have struggled. He would have been a completely different boy.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I hope that people listening, it will raise now some awareness within their minds, within the circle that we live in, our community, to read up more. And for those that have maybe children with autism, hopefully it will help them with this challenge. And subhanallah, as you guys said, it's a blessing. You were chosen, and I'm glad that we did this podcast.
Thank you.
I've known Mustafa for a very long time. I love you, but not just because your name's Mustafa. There's only one bad thing about Mustafa, is that he supports Liverpool.
Alhamdulillah.
Which for a lot of viewers is a good thing, because I know there's a lot of
The
Liverpool
team of the
fans out
faithful.
there.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I think we'll leave that for another podcast. But thanks for taking time out.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, and inshallah we'll have you maybe soon to speak about, I think, more important issues in our community. Thanks.
Inshallah. Thank you.